Hello, welcome in to a new horror movie review. I am Freddie of Freddie Eats Media, and today we are going to be discussing Lake Mungo. I'm going to be giving some minor plot details as well as my overall thoughts on the film, give it a rating, and then we'll dive into some spoiler aspects at the end of the video. But Lake Mungo is a 2008 Australian mockumentary film written and directed by Joel Anderson. The mockumentary catalogs the Palmer family's grief after the loss of Alice, a young girl who tragically lost her life after drowning while the family was having a day swimming at their local lake. The reason for the documentary is due to supposed strange occurrences the family has experienced since the young girl's untimely death. The movie is mainly comprised of interviews from the parents June and Russell, their son Matthew, as well as the community at large, as the story has taken some infamous turns throughout. I was drawn to this film mainly due to it being spooky season, and it's been one that I've seen described as disturbing in some elements, but overall emotionally distressing. And for whatever reason, that just seemed up my alley for this evening. I just got done watching it not too long ago, and overall, I think it's pretty solid. It has interesting ways of handling grief across all the characters. You have the mother, June, who wanders into random strangers' houses to kind of just escape her own life. You have the father, Russell, working extremely long hours and kind of really burying himself in his work to distract himself from the grief that he feels. And then you have Matthew, who makes some questionable choices throughout the film, but you kind of start to understand it as his really unorthodox ways of coping. I think that the desperation of this family is really telling. I mean, they go so far as to exhume the corpse of Alice to kind of prove that she is actually gone. The horror elements itself is also pretty solid. I think the grainy footage that kind of is the main catalyst of the horror throughout the film is pretty well done, especially with that kind of early 2000s noise technology. And all in all, the plot itself takes several turns throughout that constantly keeps you guessing. Now, I did mention, the overall kind of creepy factors of it is that Matthew, who has taken up an interest in photography, has discovered images that he has taken and other images from throughout the community having what appears to be Alice in the background after her death. Now, while those shots are pretty unnerving, I'd say, they don't really sway away from those just creepy images of Alice in the corner of some recorded frame. There is a lack of variety of the horror that I feel could lead to some people having an unfulfilling watch from this movie. I will say I was pretty impressed by all of the performances in the film. I do want to give a big shout out to Rosie Traynor, who plays June. There's one scene specifically in the film where she is reading a diary entry from Alice for the mockumentary, and I think that scene alone is the best performance throughout. The cast as a whole does a pretty solid job. I honestly am constantly impressed by Australian filmmaking, especially when it comes to Australian horror. While you have the new coming Raka Raka boys with their films Talk to Me and Bring Her Back. And even with the writer-director of this film went on to consult on the scripts of some other horror films I really enjoy, like Late Night with the Devil. I feel that this film definitely has merit in its overall atmosphere and sense of dread throughout. The way that each character makes their own decisions that are dependent on their grief, and they all differ from one another in very distinct ways, and it's really fascinating. You both question their decision making while also understanding how they come to those decisions from how they are grieving with the tragedy in their own way. As I mentioned prior, some of the unsettling scenes do seem a bit redundant after a while, but the way it all kind of comes to fruition at the end does make it worth it overall. Overall, I give this film a 7 out of 10, and now let's dive into some spoilers. So, was there supernatural things afoot? See, they set up this huge plot twist with Alice having an inappropriate relationship with the couple who lives next door that is directly involved with her death. However, throughout the film, there is this sort of supernatural element happening, not only with Alice actually appearing in the images, because they have the whole side plot where Matthew is faking several of the images to kind of cope in his own way. But then you come to find out that no, some of these images do actually have Alice in them. But there's also the element of Alice and her mother June seeking counsel from the local psychic Ray. And they seem to be connected in some way that is not completely clear. I felt that the Rey subplot in general either has elements that maybe I just simply didn't understand, or they didn't lead anywhere that was super important to the overall message of the film. Once the reveal of the sexual relationship between Alice and the Tui family is revealed, I feel like the guilt and shame that she feels in this and the impending doom that she has regarding her own upcoming death could have been just as devastating and tragic without the inclusion of the Rey character. But again, all in all, I really enjoyed this movie. If you're looking for one that is filled with a sense of grief and dread and just like filled to the brim with atmosphere, this is certainly worth the watch. But certainly feel free to sound off in the comments with your own thoughts on the film. Are there things that maybe I'm missing? Did it resonate more with you? I would love to hear. If you did like this review, please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more things like this. And if you want to see my more written out thoughts of this film that I used for the making of this video review, you can check out my letterbox where my logged review is what I directly used to make this video. But that's going to do it for me for this one. I appreciate you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one, but if not, I'll keep the seat warm for you.